Welcome to Just Break Up, the podcast about love, heartbreak, and all the relationship advice you don't want to hear. My name is Sierra DeMulder.
And I'm Sam Blackwell. Today we're going to answer a letter from somebody whose partner is uncompromising about his holiday plans. But before we begin, we just want to give you our Surgeon General's warning, which is that Sierra and I are not licensed mental health practitioners or relationship people. We didn't go to school. We just made this up.
We did go to school. We didn't go to school for this. So we are not accredited. True. We are not professionals in any way whatsoever. So please take our advice as you see fit as a supplement to the rest of your mental health, whatever's going on. Mm-hmm. We're just here to offer our humble musings to hopefully shed some understanding and maybe some laughs about the incredibly rewarding but mostly confusing experience that is love. All right, so today's check-in topic is inspired by a letter from one of our wonderful listeners. Basically, she was explaining to us how she's been with her partner for almost 3 years. And in the past 6 months, she's seen a rapid decline in his hygiene, specifically brushing his teeth. And he just doesn't brush his teeth. And she's over here oh my God, this is gross. It causes heart disease, yada, yada. And, also important, the fact that she is having a hard time feeling attracted to him during this time. And she's basically I don't want to hurt his feelings, but I'm so turned off by all of this and I have no idea how to approach it. And he just seems to have a general apathy about this. And I thought it would be a cool check-in topic to pull from this letter. So thank you to our letter writer. Just the idea of how to talk to our partners about things that are really sticky, and really, I think of a topic like this as one with many emotional landmines in it, the sense of shame that somebody might feel, the whatever mental health crises that they could be going through, defensiveness, and also we also have legitimate feelings of disgust from one partner, and I use that word intentionally, but not with malice, an actual concern and a sense of being grossed out. So how do we navigate these conversations? We can talk specifically about how do we talk to our partners about their hygiene, but a general umbrella conversation about how do we approach these conversations that could be triggering some feelings of shame or confusion or whatever. So super broad, kind of specific, vague question.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you said about mental health crises is important here because, I think a lot of folks who are experiencing some sort of mental health issue or a sudden onset of some sort of mental health thing that might be triggered by something or just because whatever is happening in our bodies, right? Because I think that the folks who are experiencing that tend to be less interested in the tasks of upkeep, right? Because, we're struggling to get from day to day. It can seem less important, right? Because it's I'm not worth taking care of myself or, doing that seems like so much work and I just don't have any energy to do it. All of these different reasons why our sort of care for ourselves might take a dip when we're experiencing mental health crisis. So I think it's important, especially in this circumstance where it's this kind of happened over the course of time, things got worse, is how do we approach these conversations with curiosity about what might be driving them, right? I think especially because we're in such a judgmental world, it's oh my God, that person doesn't brush their teeth. Disgusting. What's wrong with them, right? As opposed to being oh, that person's not brushing their teeth. I wonder if they're going through something, right? Or I wonder how they're feeling about themselves because of this. So approaching some of those things with curiosity and using this symptom for what it is, which is not a bad thing, but instead an indication that maybe something's not going well can be helpful in those conversations. So hey, I've been noticing that you've been showering less. Is there something going on? How are you feeling? Right? Or, hey, I've been noticing that you haven't been brushing your teeth or taking care of your oral hygiene. How are you feeling? Right? What's going on with you? Is everything okay? Can be a little bit more I think, helpful than being like, brush your teeth, you nasty. You know what I mean? Like that could actually elicit what I think is also probably the cause of this, which is not that like somebody just is like, doesn't want to take care of themselves, but like that something is impacting them in a way that they aren't able to take care of themselves.
Yeah, I think it's hard too, because, the first thing that comes to my mind when we're contemplating these things is curiosity. How can I lead with compassion and curiosity about what's going on? And also, I'm a human being that has reactions to things and like subconscious expectations of things. And if I was this partner, who wrote this letter, I would be like, it would be hard, I guess just naming the fact that like, you're not a bad person if you have a reaction first and then you can access your compassion and curiosity later. Obviously, what we're doing right now is trying to strategize to limit our reactiveness so that we're enabled to have a response instead of that reactionary disgust or whatever. I think to practice like a script, I would maybe be like, I would be honestly, I'd be really mindful of the way in which I brought it up, because I have noticed in my own behavior, like when somebody tries to bring something up to me, like, in like a 25% passive way, like, oh, did you want to brush your teeth or something? In not just facing it head on, I think makes me even more defensive, I think sometimes, because I'm thinking like, oh my God, they've got all these thoughts in their head and they're trying to like, I don't know. I think if I was in this situation, I think this is concerning to me. So I would say to my partner when we had some downtime, hey, can I have a serious conversation with you about something? I want you to know that I've been a little concerned lately because I've noticed a decline in your teeth hygiene or whatever. I've noticed, I haven't really seen you brushing your teeth lately. And then you can, before they're like, oh, well, you can say, I'm not judging you and I love you no matter what. I love you with dirty mouth and I love you with a clean mouth and I love you struggling and I love you thriving. I don't need you to explain why this is happening, but I want you to know that I'm curious and I am a little concerned because because this is abnormal and or whatever. Like I would try to stay off of the platform of like, this could cause heart disease and gum infections, because right now you're not trying to scare their behavior into something good. You're trying to get in touch with their humanity and why they're struggling right now. I don't know. Can you add to that script a little? You're always good at that.
No, I mean, I think that's a good way to do it. And I also think that you can offer some of your own sort of like requests or preferences around this as well, right? So, instead of being like, oh my God, you're gross, brush your teeth, you can also be like, hey, if we're going to be kissing, right? Like I want to be in the moment with you. So can we both brush our teeth before we do it? Right. Or if we're going to be intimate, can we take a shower, like a nice shower together before we actually do the deed? Right. To like offer some places where you can also get some of your needs met without it being like this is a thing for you to figure out. And I think that can also be helpful, because the issue here is that like, yeah, absolutely. We don't want to provoke shame in this person or make them feel bad. And also, right, like some of the things that they're doing are making you like really uncomfortable, right? And making you like not want to be intimate with them. And that's a problem, right? Like that's not something that you just need to swallow and get over, right? Like that is a need that also deserves tending to. So how can you be creative about like enlisting them in supporting you, trying to be as close with them as possible. Part of which does mean that that they can't kiss you with, days of not having brushed their teeth. Like, I think it's reasonable for you to be like, that makes me uncomfortable. It takes me out of the moment. It makes it hard for me to like want to be intimate with you. And I want to be intimate with you, right? Like that doesn't change. I love you as the person that you are in the body that you're in. And how can we be helpful together to make sure that when we're doing this thing, when we're coming together, that it's a good experience for both of us, right? And it's not unreasonable to do that, I think. And of course, this person might receive it in a way that makes them feel shame, but it's also not your responsibility to withhold everything you're thinking and feeling about somebody because it might spark shame in them, right? Because you are not actually responsible for the shame that they're feeling. Like that is their own, right? And that is part of everything that they've learned about themselves and their bodies, which is like also not their own. But I do think like we're so capable of swallowing everything so that we don't elicit shame in people, but like then you're not having a conversation about how what he's doing is making you feel about him and your relationship with him. And that's also not fair to him.
Yes, totally. That feels like a good place to transition into this week's letter. That's really helpful.
Let's do it. All right. Today's letter comes from Mad for No Reason, whose pronouns are she, her, who is writing from a sticky feeling. Dear Sam and Sierra, I would like some honest opinions about a hard discussion I had with my boyfriend that ended with me in tears. I'm 23, she, her, and my boyfriend, let's call him Fred, is 25, he, him. We have been dating for 8 months, but he is really starting to feel like a serious long-term partner for me, which is exciting. Long story short, we had a disagreement about how we prefer to spend our holidays. Christmas and Thanksgiving traditions are really important to Fred. He is very close with his small family and has never spent a holiday season away from home. In my case, I have far from a small nuclear family. I have divorced parents and have moved houses plenty of times. Thus, my holiday season looks different every year. I even lived out of the country for one holiday season, but don't get me wrong, Christmas and Thanksgiving are still a very important time for me as well. I love my motley family, and I would absolutely love to include Fred in our traditions in the future. In this discussion, he shared that previous partners have been frustrated about his unwillingness to visit their family for important holidays. This raised a small flag in my brain when he said this, so I asked for clarification. In essence, he explained that he has not and does not want to give up his holiday traditions with his parents and brother, full stop. It is simply a boundary he has, and if there was a choice between my family and his for the holidays, he would pick his family every time. But, he adds, I'm invited to his gatherings, and if there is a holiday tradition of mine that does not conflict with his traditions, he will make time for it. For some reason, this hit a really sticky spot in my heart. In the past, I have been told by people I've dated that my family is too chaotic or hard to get close with, or there is too many of us, or they simply just don't put effort into getting to know my family. I know that this is not Fred. Fred has expressed desire to get to know my family and become close with them. He is over the top kind to them. So why does it trigger me in the way that it does? In particular, I was struck by how uncompromising and stubborn he sounded. It is even close to the holiday season, but I am dreading the inevitable day when I will have to dig up all these hard feelings again and have an honest discussion. And when that day comes, I want to feel grounded enough to broach the subject without all of these sticky feelings. I really want a healthy perspective shift on this because I want to be fair to his family values and in no way want to disrespect his holiday traditions. But my impulse is to think that he is being selfish and uncompromising. It feels like he wants his cake and to eat it too. Fred says that this prioritization of his family isn't personally against me, but how is it not personal? I would be delighted to share family traditions with each other and compromise with an even mix of family gatherings, but he won't entertain that idea. He also added that he doesn't want me to hold resentment about this when he inevitably says no to the invitation to my family Christmas or Thanksgiving. I'm getting upset just thinking about this. This is spurring a lot of negative reactions for me. Is it wrong for me to take this boundary so personally? Is it even a valid boundary at all? Is he being selfish like my gut is telling me? Am I disrespecting his hard boundaries? I need a guiding force to give me perspective. I am feeling jumbled. I feel that it will be really tricky to continue in a long-term relationship if I don't feel like he is committed to being a little flexible. Any advice or musing would be so helpful. I love you both. I have been a JBU committed listener for 4 years now, and you are always here when I need you. Thank you and keep up the good work. XOXO, Mad.
We are always here. I like that idea because, like, Sam and I have our own lives, but our episodes are always available.
It's true. You can find them wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah. Oh, my darling. Thank you so much for writing and trusting us with this letter. I think this is a great letter because I don't know if we've ever had a question about this in the past, in the almost 6 years of doing this podcast. And I think it's a beautiful and clunky question because it's about merging your lives together. And I think part of partnership is learning the ins and outs of enmeshment and compromise, and what does it look like to bring together two different people who love each other, but who have totally different worldviews, different traditions, different, socializing capacities, et cetera, et cetera. But Sam and I think that this isn't raising a red flag to me, but it is raising a issue for me.
Sure.
I don't think that your boyfriend is being selfish. It more seems like an immature hill to die on. And we will get more into that.
It seems immature, I think, is the exact right word.
See what
for
I mean?
It.
Like,
yeah,
I don't think it's selfish. I really don't think it's selfish. I think it's like, all right, so how long do you see this going on like this? In order to have somebody in your life, you need to make room for somebody in your life. So anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. We will get more into this in just a little bit, but we have to take a very quick break.
All right, everyone, welcome back. We were talking before the break about how this kind of just like strikes me as just like a level of immaturity, because it is like, and I think like immaturity is kind of tied to selfishness, right? Like I think immature people tend to be selfish, but I just want to I want to say that out loud because I'm feeling like a lot of like meta feelings that you are having, letter writer, about how I'm a bad person for thinking that this is selfish, or am I being unreasonable? Should I respect this hard boundary? Like all of these things that I think are like good questions to be asking, but can also be like, can kind of fuck with our intuition sometimes, right? Like can sort of like interrupt our ability to understand what we want and what we need out of this relationship, right? And what I'll say explicitly is like, he can make this a hard boundary, right? Like that is in his prerogative. He can say, I will never in my life compromise on my holiday plans with my family.
It's going to be a bummer for your kids.
Yeah, right. I was thinking about that also.
I don't
know if you're going to have children or absolutely, but for sure. And I also think that like this boundary may feel not personal to him, but I can understand and empathize with the fact that it feels really personal to you. And just because it's not personal to him doesn't mean that you can't take it personally. You know what I mean?
I think it's one of the perfect examples of a conflict that is not personal, but feels personal. And why does it, like, for me to establish the idea that like, he's not doing that to personally reject your family, but he's also got to recognize that you will feel personally rejected. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
For me to better if I was the letter writer in this situation, it would help me to be like, okay, he is not looking at me in the face and rejecting me, but I still feel the rejection, and navigating the difference between those two would be helpful for me.
Sure. But I also think it's like, it is a little bit of semantics to be like, he doesn't want to spend Christmas with anyone's family, not just your family, right? Like it is like, yeah, but anyone's family is also my family, right?
Yeah,
it's like, I can understand that he's thinking about this in like a like logical sort of way, but like tied into that is him telling you explicitly, I don't want to be with your family on these holidays, right? Like that is what he's saying.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think it would help me, in a very emotional and sensitive person, navigate my feelings better, even be more clear-minded about the fact that like this is not going to work, or I need you to bend towards me a little. If I didn't internalize it as something personal to me, and instead, like, this hurts me personally. It's not we're also different people. I think that it would just help me. I take things so personally. I think I get so emotionally hurt that it would help me to like figure out the parameters of like, well, where am I personally being hurt, and where is this just like a long-term incompatibility? I don't know. You're right though. Like, I know that that's just semantics at the end of the day. My emotional processing loves semantics because without them, it's just a wild jungle of feelings.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. But I also I don't want you to talk yourself out of these feelings because well, logically, he's just saying he doesn't want to spend time with any other family than his. But it's like, so but my family's one of those families.
No, and to me, the problem is it's not personal. It's an actual holistic whole choice that he's making.
Yeah.
And how can I build a future with somebody who doesn't see our lives becoming enmeshed in one another? Truthfully, man, I mean, if y'all are over on our Patreon, you know that I'm having a mental breakdown over a holiday, over a vacation.
It's funny because it's true. Like, it's just like
I'm just becoming unraveled over a vacation.
She's been spiraling for weeks about this vacation, y'all.
Yes. And I'm telling, and it's going to be a great vacation. It's with my in-laws. I love my in-laws. And also I'm just stressed because of life. But this is all to say, like, marriage is a meshment. Marriage is fucking figuring it out. It's long. It's weird holidays. It's long travel dates. It's going to it's missing holidays. That's what I literally being in, and not even just marriage, but like being in partnership is there are opportunity costs for everything. And that is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to work creatively together to problem solve your schedule and your traditions and to make your own traditions and all of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think just like think about the difference, how different it would feel if he was like, instead of being like, I refuse to do anything but my family's holiday traditions, and you can be part of them if they don't, and I will be part of yours as long as they don't interfere with mine, which is just like it's just funny. Right. If instead of saying that, he was like, my holiday traditions are really important to me. And I would also love to figure out how we can preserve the things that are important to me with understanding that your holiday traditions are probably also really important to you. Right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if that was the thing, but instead he's just sitting here being like, no, mine are better. Mine are more important. And this is where the immaturity piece comes into it, because I'm like, has he not seen the ways in which we can be like flexible and still like hold?
I'm so glad you're on board with the immature word, because we didn't even compare notes before that, but I have it written like there's no real world application. I don't know. I felt torn at first, because at first I'm like, man, you're only 25. This is obviously something really important to him. And like, if my wife said X, Y, and Z is really important to her, I would probably do anything to uphold those X, Y, and Z's. And also, I think that it's important to point out that like that sort of sacrifice is hard earned and has been fostered in a relationship of trust and giving and compromise and all of those things. And so I want to honor the importance that this plays in his life, and also be like, the quote that the letter writer shared, I would pick my family every time. I want to be like, yeah, like, I would too.
Me too. I love Peter's family. I would rather spend Christmas with my family.
Every time, 100% of the time. Without a doubt. And I love my in-laws. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I'm with you.
So it's like, yeah, bro. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's no real world application, but I want to honor the sentiment of it. And I also want to say to the letter writer, this is not a red flag to me. And this is why I said that, is because I don't think he's a bad person or incapable of compromise, because he is trying to prioritize and cling to the tiniest part of a joy, family tradition, connectedness. I mean, we're all mortal. Like, I want to honor that like, especially as you get older, you start realizing how fleeting this time is and how fleeting these traditions are, and how, 1 year, nothing could be at the same again. So I'm honoring that, and also honoring the fact that, like, if he wants to build a life with somebody, there are going to be years and holiday traditions and, long car rides and things in which you have to, you work together to creatively problem solve your lives together. And there's going to be years in which it doesn't work. I think that's another reason why it's important for me to, like, this is going to be the hill I die on, apparently, but to be like, this isn't about you personally. It's not a rejection of you personally, but it is what do we call it? A symbolic conflict. Sam Blackwell teach me about conflict. Like, that is the idea. It's not a, what's the other one? Like a personal conflict. It's not about you.
There's a material, there's symbolic, and there's relational.
It's not a relational conflict. It feels relational.
But it is a relational conflict for her.
I know, but it's also symbolic for both of them, because she's, whatever.
For him, it feels really material. He's just like, I
know.
just won't do Christmas anywhere but with my family. And everyone else is like, okay, what?
Yeah.
Like, and the fact that this has been a recurring pattern in his relationships, and he's still like, yep, this is the little hill I'm going to die on.
Literally, I'm trying to access my empathy and my curiosity by being like, okay, Christmas morning with my family, like, time spent, like, this is so important. And also, I'm like, bruh, like,
you can have a Christmas morning on December 28th, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, there's flexibility here. And I think that's part of why this is so frustrating, is because it's like, as you're thinking about conflict, there has to be some sort of incompatibility, right? Like, that's where the source of the conflict is. Like, he wants to spend Christmas with his family and you want to spend Christmas with yours, whatever. That's the incompatibility. But part of navigating conflict effectively is by being creative around, where can we actually see that we're not incompatible, right? Like, how can we figure out what it looks like for both of us to get some of or all of what we want? And he's just like, nope, it's an incompatibility, and it always will be. And there's no flexibility around it, which is hard to engage in meaningful conflict with somebody around, because it's like, are we looking at the same thing? Yes, of course there's flexibility here. There has to be. And so I think, like, again, this is just the marker for what feels like immaturity, is because, like, it's like, oh, I'm sitting here in my camp and I can't perceive a world outside of what I have, what is my experience. And, like, the fact, again, like, don't take this personally, he's not talking about your family specifically, but, like, also that he can't recognize why other people would be frustrated or hurt by this decision that he's making, and just, like, sit there in relationship and be like, nope, this is a hard boundary for me. And if that's a hard boundary for you, bro, like, no, thank you. You know what I mean? Like, it feels so silly to me to have this hard boundary. And, like, again, maybe this is, like, his thing. Maybe, like, maybe it's worth it for him to, like, upset the people in his life in this way because it's so important. And if that's the case, then, like, I'm glad that he's doing it, right? Like, if this is really that important to him, I'm glad. But I think for me, it would be really challenging to be in relationship with somebody who's uncompromising about this thing, because then the question becomes, what else are you going to be uncompromising about, right? Like, what other things are we going to run into where you're like, here's my line in the sand, and I cannot see a world outside of this specific way of understanding this thing. And, like, what else is it going to be, right? Like, if you start having children, if you move in together, right? Like, all of these different things, like, what else is going to be a hard boundary that has, like, no ability to compromise?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tricky. I can't really, because this is only a, however many word letter, I can't discern if this is, like, a pattern or a miss. Sometimes I feel like it's like it's a value that he's trying to uphold that's being poorly executed, because rigidity isn't what upholds our values, right? Again, creativity, compassion, curiosity can help us uphold. And if your value is family time, anyway, we're on the same page, or like, I ultimately agree.
Yeah, if your value is family time, then like, what sort of family time are you doing? You know, like, and why is it so tied to this specific day? Like,
yeah. Exactly. And what kind of family building, not in like the procreating way, but like if you want a partnership, that's your family, you know? Anyway, my darling, this is all to say that Sam and I have some feelings about what is going on. We have no advice. We literally this was a feelings-based reaction. We didn't give it any practical advice, like no takeaways.
My practical advice is to like tell him how you feel about this.
Yeah.
And have like a real conversation where you're like, is this the deal? Like, is this such an incompatibility that like the two of us could break up over this thing, right? Like, are you so uncompromising about this that you are like not willing to like move the day or figure out some sort of path forward? And again, like, I think you need to dig into this, and you need to dig into it before the holidays happen so that you're not trying to like figure it out while that's happening. But I think you should definitely have more conversation about this, and you should tell him that this is landing on you in a particular way, that you are feeling like he's not seeing or respecting you or your family or your traditions, and that you're worried about what a future relationship is going to look like with him if you can't find a way to compromise about something like this.
That's it for me. Yep. All right, my darling. We love you, and we hope this helps.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for writing. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like more content from us, or if you would like access to our monthly office hours when we get onto Zoom and hang out with anyone who is a Patreon supporter who wants to join us and answer questions in real time, you can do that. It's patreon.com/justbreakuppod. That's it. Yeah.
You can slide into our DMs, send us your favorite relationship memes. Most importantly, you can submit your questions about all matters of the heart at justbreakuppod.com, which is also where you can find our merchandise.
Please remember to like, follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating and review. This literally keeps our mics on and helps us reach more brokenhearted souls who need two random strangers giving them relationship advice.
Just Break Up is a production of Duvid Media, original music recording, editing, producing, all magical things by our good friend Spencer Worth Davis. Make sure to check out his podcast and music. And remember, building a relationship together, building a life together, especially, you know, long-term with a shared relationship vision and goals, is about compromise. It's not about smothering your own voice or your own values or giving in to give your partner what they want. It's about creatively problem solving the things that come up in life. And sometimes the things that come up in life are schedule conflicts, and you need to learn how to work with your partner to navigate them. And if all else fails,
just break up.